Imagine this. An African leader didn't raise a weapon, yet he shook the United States. It was a quiet morning in Ouagadougou. The sun was slowly rising, painting the dry streets in shades of gold. People went about their routines, unaware that the world was about to witness something extraordinary. In the middle of that calm, President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso took a step that would shake the international order. His country filed a formal legal complaint at the International Criminal Court against Donald J. Trump, the sitting president of the United States. For the first time in history, an African nation had directly challenged an American president by name, not with threats, not with weapons, but through law. Weeks earlier, Traoré had noticed movements of U.S. naval vessels near Venezuela's oil-rich waters. Most would see it as routine show of force, but he understood the stakes. This was more than presence. It was a clear plan to seize resources quietly, without declarations, without permission, without international oversight. Instead of raising alarms publicly or mobilizing armies, Traoré chose a different path. He gathered a team of international lawyers, constitutional experts, and intelligence analysts. He collected evidence, satellite images, corporate contracts, intercepted communications, all pointing toward premeditated economic intervention. When the filing was finally submitted, it wasn't just a list of accusations, it was a moral statement. At the end of the document, he wrote, "We file this case not out of hatred, vengeance, or political ambition. We file because silence is complicity, and the time for silence has ended." The world reacted. Headlines across South America, West Africa, and Southeast Asia carried his words. Students projected the quote on walls, community groups held readings, and ordinary citizens realized something profound. Even the smallest nations have power when they act with courage and justice. In Washington, the reaction was predictable: dismissals, ridicule, accusations of opportunism. But inside the ICC, legal experts began to acknowledge the seriousness of the case. Scholars from Kenya, the Netherlands, and Argentina spoke openly. A military presence near another country's resources, without authorization, is coercive and illegal. Traoré didn't celebrate. He didn't give interviews or attend rallies. Instead, he focused on his country, building institutions for legal education, translating international law for local communities, and showing his people that justice is not a tool of the powerful, but a weapon for the powerless. In a world obsessed with power displays, Traoré's move was quiet, yet profound. He didn't fire a single shot. He didn't impose sanctions. He simply said no, legally, morally, and publicly. And the world had no choice but to listen. This was more than a case. It was a lesson. Real strength is not in wealth or military might. It is in courage, integrity, and the willingness to stand for what is right, even when the odds seem impossible. Burkina Faso may be landlocked and often overlooked, but in that moment, it became the center of a global awakening. The message was clear: even the smallest voice can shape the rules that govern us all. And that is why, in September 2025, the world learned something vital: that dignity, justice, and courage are not measured by size, armies, or wealth. They are measured by action. After the ICC filing, the world started paying attention. At first, many Western media outlets dismissed it as a symbolic move by a small African nation. Political analysts called it a stunt. Yet the document spoke louder than any headline. It contained hard evidence: satellite images of U.S. naval movements, financial contracts showing corporate interests, and intercepted communications suggesting pre-planned resource extraction. Traoré's filing wasn't just about holding a single person accountable. It was about exposing a system, a global pattern where military power and corporate interests often overshadow international law. He wanted the world to see that coercion, even if masked as diplomacy or security operations, is still aggression. The reaction outside Burkina Faso was remarkable. Students in South America and Africa projected his statements in public spaces. Civil society groups held vigils. Fishermen in the Philippines and miners in South Africa sent letters of solidarity. His simple handwritten words on "silence is complicity" resonated far beyond borders. Even governments began to notice. Landlocked African nations like Niger, Chad, and the Central African Republic reached out to Burkina Faso to seek advice on protecting their resources legally. The ICC responded as well, establishing a special panel to review the claims quickly, a first in history for a filing from a non-aligned small African nation. Traoré didn't seek recognition. He didn't want political gain. Instead, he focused on creating a sustainable impact. He invested in legal education in Burkina Faso, translated the Rome Statute into local languages, and built systems so future generations would understand that law could be a shield and a weapon. Meanwhile, in Washington, pressure was mounting. Leaks revealed that U.S. officials were less concerned with the legal risk and more worried about the appearance of moral defeat. For a president whose image was built on strength, being challenged by a leader from a small, landlocked African country was politically uncomfortable. Public insults were launched, but they had little effect. The world was beginning to see a new narrative, one where courage and law mattered more than military power. Traoré had changed the game. He shifted the battlefield from guns and armies to law and public conscience, and the ripple effects were just beginning.